Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be standing at the middle of the field, trampling all over the Bears logo. And we're going to be talking about Corey Crawford and maybe a little baseball news. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is going to start soon. Promise. So head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, and sign up for season tickets and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, that game sucked butthole.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to put it. Now, listen, I want to make something very clear. You and I both know we didn't go into this game with much expectations.
Zero
we
expectations.
knew, right. And, we knew that the Saints were obviously a better team, better players, better coached, all across.
Better old general manager, better ownership.
Mm-hmm. Probably better stadium, too. I mean, say what you will about, the Superdome, but that is a very, very historical building that has been through a lot. And I think, great atmosphere. But, anyway, despite all that, the Bears had a chance to take this game. It was there. It's not like the Saints came out and just guns a-blazing started destroying them. The game was there for the taking. But no discipline, dropped passes. I mean, the wins drop. I'm sure we're going to talk about that in more detail later. But it was shooting of the foot to yourself. You're not shooting the other team. You're shooting at your own foot. That's what we saw for 3 hours and 10 minutes. That was 3 hours and 10 minutes of just boring, bad, no energy, playing with no guts whatsoever. No guts, no glory.
To put it into perspective, up until that last drive of the game where there was 2 minutes left to play, okay? You take out that and that is the definition of garbage time, where there's 0%. Literally, there is 0% chance you can win that game. And the Bears put a drive together to pad those stats. You take away that drive, the one with 2 minutes left. The Bears had 148 yards of offense and 0 first downs.
Yeah.
The Bears had
more
0 first downs going into the final 2 minutes of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's too bad because that grab by Jimmy Graham was a pretty damn good grab, but it didn't mean anything. And as they were marching down the field, I literally sat there and said, yay, garbage time points. Very sarcastically, of course.
True facts. Up until the last 2 minutes of the game, they had more players more players ejected from the game than they did first downs.
They might as well be suspended for putting that performance in front of innocent children watching on Nickelodeon. They should be suspended.
I mean, I've got a lot of things to say, and I don't know, this is an odd one to jump into. So when you played the Saints earlier in the season, Javon Wims made a really dumb decision to just run up and start punching a player on the Saints in the head with a helmet on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we understand that the guy was chirping a lot. And I get that's probably really frustrating. But at what point do the coaches say, hey, you know what? We're playing this same team again. This guy is going to be chirping again. He chirps at everybody. He's only been punched by one person. Let's not have a repeat of that incident. Anthony Miller's like, what? I got to punch this guy. Like, what poor discipline. This is a poor disciplined team. Like, plain and simple. There's no discipline on this team.
Sean, you know what really stood out to me is when the game was still in reach and you had, you could have held them to a field goal, but you jumped off sides. It was either offsides or neutral zone infraction on fourth down, and you gave them a first down. That right there summed up everything.
There's so much in this game. And, garbage time, here we come, is going into that last drive, Mitch Trubisky had like a 70 quarterback rating and had thrown for like 140 yards or 130 yards and no touchdowns. And because of that last drive, he now has a 96.8 QB rating and 200 yards passing and a touchdown, which you're like, okay, that's a reasonable number. It just doesn't tell the whole story of this game.
No.
And I'm not going to throw it all on Mitch. We all knew who Mitch was. And he's not an NFL quarterback that's a starting quarterback for a winning team. Just not who he is. But
no.
There's a reason in this league that there are teams that are haves and there are teams that are have-nots. The same teams keep winning over and over and over again, or at least contending over and over and over again, because they have a winning organization that they've established. Winning owners. They put a good structure in place as far as their football operations. And when people don't do their jobs, they're held accountable. You have coaches in there that not only are good play callers, they're good teachers and developers of talent. That's why you're like, oh man, look, how does Pittsburgh, get rid of Antonio Brown and not miss a beat with Juju Smith-Schuster? And then they're like, oh, they got this guy Claypool. Don't miss a beat with him. It's like they never miss a beat when they're with their wide receivers. It's because they develop these players. They have good recognition of talent, and they know how to bring the best out of those talented players. These are winning organizations. And then you have organizations like the Jets, like the Jaguars, like the Lions, that are just, eternal losers. And you look at Jacksonville, where they've let go their front office, and the owner's like, you know what? I'm going to bring in a new GM, but I have full control over who we're drafting in the first round of the draft. Like, you've sucked since you've owned that team, except for 1 year. You didn't suck. And you're going to retain, like, that's the asinine things that losing teams do. And the Bears are I hate to say this, are a losing team. They're a losing organization that every once in a while flukes their way into a respectable season. And I'm tired of it. We're not going to change ownership. The McCaskies are staying. but they need to create a firewall. There needs to be somebody at the top. And every domino from Ted Phillips down need to fall. They all need to fall. This is an embarrassment. If you look at this and make, well, we made the playoffs, then that's a loser mentality. There was no chance of winning this game, and you embarrass yourself on television. Every national correspondent was laughing at the Bears during this game. They had no business making the playoffs. They only made it because they expanded it for COVID, and you had no business being in the playoffs, and you showed it because you got blown out. Did anybody else in the playoffs get blown out?
No, that's something I wanted to bring up too. This game broke the streak of some pretty darn good games. I mean, look at yesterday's Indianapolis-Buffalo game. That came down to the wire. That was a good game.
That was a very good game.
Seattle-LA. Yeah, Seattle-LA. It wasn't a great game, but at least it was still a game. Yesterday, Washington and the Bucks. People thought it was going to be an absolute blowout. It ended up being a lot closer than some people thought. And then today with Baltimore and Tennessee, that was a really good game. Every game so far was at the very least a decent game. This was not a decent game by any means. I mean, this was pretty brutal to watch for a number of reasons. And, of course the Bears are involved in it, and they're the main reason why it was so brutal to watch. Who wants to sit down and watch Mitch Trubisky? Who wants to sit down and watch them punt more than they have first downs? Who wants to watch them throw short of the sticks? Who wants to watch them commit stupid penalties and shoot themselves in the foot over and over and over? I mean, again, I went into this game thinking that the New Orleans Saints were just going to completely overpower the Bears. That's how I saw it. And I saw this game as, the Saints have some flaws, so maybe they can make it a good game, and maybe it will be a bit more entertaining than we thought. But this was brutal for a number of reasons. And the fact that the game was so close going into halftime was frustrating on its own, because the Saints, maybe they were just dicking around. I don't really know. I don't know how serious they were taking the game. But, like I said at the very beginning of the show, the Bears could have taken the lead on a number of chances. But they decided to shoot themselves in the foot. And you know what? At the end of the day, when you shoot yourself in the foot like that on so many occasions, you're not a good team. You don't deserve to be in the Super Bowl mix. And, there's a reason you're 8-8, and there is a reason that outside barely beating Tom Brady, you have not had any success whatsoever against teams that are not absolute shit, like the Lions, the Falcons, the Jaguars, the Texans. Or the Carolina Panthers.
And there's a lot of blame to go around, but Matt Nagy is a coward. He's an absolute coward. At the end of the first half,
oh my God,
is you don't take a chance to try to drive down and get some points.
Chicken shit. It was chicken shit.
You had the opportunity to get a 2-for-1. Is drive down there, get the last drive of the half, score some points, and then get the kickoff at the start of the second half. And, it was unfortunate. It really sucks that Javon Wims dropped an easy touchdown catch. The Bears should have been winning. But you know what? You didn't belong in the playoffs. You eked in because of an adjustment because of COVID. And you should have, if you're Matt Nagy, you should have emptied everything you had.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing.
Yeah, give it all you have. Who cares?
Is you had two, we talked about it before the first Saints game of the season. And we talked about it before this one. Is if you play short, that Saints defense is actually pretty solid. It's where they get beat is on explosive plays. They get beat on explosive plays, and the Bears beat them twice with Javon Wims. Once was a catch, once was a drop, and they went away from it. They just went away from it. They had it. They just went away, and you're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what? Why? Why are you? That's been successful. Is literally, you know how to beat this team, and you have to take deep plays, and they're just so conservative. You know what? If you're going to lose, at least fire all your rounds. Go out guns blazing. Yep. I would rather see them lose going balls out and be like, you know what? They gave it everything, than to pussyfoot around and be namby-pamby and be like, oh, you know what? We just want to play it safe and try to keep this game close. And like, God damn it. Don't do that. Just go out there and throw deep passes. Go out there and try to win the game. Like, try. Go out there and play a game to win the game, not to keep it close. And I think ultimately his goal was, if we get blown out, I'm going to lose my job. And if we keep it close, I'm going to keep my job. And that's the way he coached.
You know what's a worse look? You know what's a worse look than getting blown out and trying? Losing big and playing like chicken shit. That to me is worse. And you know what? All those dumb penalties just make it even harder on you. And you know what, Sean? Those last few minutes of the first half, let's remember one thing. They had 2 fucking timeouts. And then run. Like they were trying to milk the clock out when they were down. And you are in a dome. You are in an environment with a really good kicker where you just need maybe a few, 3 good plays.
Not to interrupt you.
So you can kick a field goal.
Not to interrupt you, but very first play of the game, the Browns just scored on defense.
No kidding.
It's 7-0 Cleveland.
Wow.
Bad snap, recovered in the end zone.
Wow.
All right, let's go back to our chicken shit head coach and the dum-dums that run the organization. And, you know, you have on offense, or you have the head coach who's just playing it safe. Is go for it. You got blown out by Green Bay, and you backed into the playoffs because Arizona just crumbled at the end of the season. Crumbled. Mm-hmm. So they expanded the playoffs to an extra team, and the team ahead of you just disintegrated. And you backed in after getting blown out, and you're going to play it safe, like you're going to keep this close and somehow win. If you were going to win, if you won this game, you're going to Green Bay to play the Packers in Green Bay. Go out there. Give them something to worry about. Like, uh-oh, maybe the Bears figured this out. Maybe the Bears aren't going to play scared. Go out there. You're playing with house money. Why not just go for it? Like, go with a sport or a gambling analogy. Sure, you play it conservative, if you don't want to lose all your money and go home broke. But this is house money. Like, no matter what, you go back home, like you're not losing anything. You shouldn't have been there anyway. Go out there and make big gambles. It shows your team you believe in them. And if you make a couple of those big plays, had Javon Wims caught that and you kept your foot on the gas, maybe you overwhelmed the Saints. They didn't play particularly well.
No, they didn't. And I can't help but wonder if the Saints didn't play well. Like I said earlier in the show, A, was it because they were just not playing well? Or B, were they just not taking things seriously and going into halftime 7-3, maybe Sean Payton said, okay, maybe we got to get serious here. I don't really know, but you were regardless, you were still in a situation to have a lead going into halftime.
Yeah. And you know what? Sean Payton made halftime adjustments. Matt Nagy did not. Like, it's just infuriating.
Yeah. I mean, that what does that tell you?
He was outcoached.
I mean, what does that tell you right there?
Outcoached again.
Yeah. In a big game. Let me say that again. Outcoached in a big game. This has been a thing since the 2018 playoffs.
And you know what? It's basically when Javon Wims dropped that touchdown pass, this team just pretty much gave up. You saw right after that, they ended up having to go for it or there was a third down, and Mitch tried to run for it, and he just half-assed ran it and didn't get the first down.
I was
that team just
yelling
sort of
at the TV, just run, just run.
It's infuriating.
You know what, Sean? Here's another thing, too, I wanted to say about this game is, okay, we can look at what happened in the second half where the Saints started moving the ball and there were a ton of missed tackles. I mean, late in the game, so many missed tackles, so many extra yards after the play. But, man, it is disappointing that the Bears couldn't take advantage because I thought the defense was lights out in that first half. They had pressure on Drew Brees. They were able to generate a takeaway. A missed field goal was just a flat missed field goal. I also think SpongeBob's face distracted it. But still, the defense kept the Bears in the game.
They absolutely did.
Much of it.
And the Bears, sure, they looked a lot different than the 2018 defense. Like, I'm not going to call them that, but they played well. They were able to stop the run. And I honestly think that the Saints thought they were going to come in there and just run the ball. And they didn't. They clearly couldn't. And, Alvin Kamara ended up picking up, almost 100 yards on the ground, but it took him, 25 carries?
They were bottling him up pretty well early on.
Yeah, but they were able to pick things up on the with the passing game, and but the Bears ultimately were standing pretty tall. It was they only allowed 7 points in the first half, and you're like, okay, I'm feeling good about this. But honestly, you knew in the second half they were going to be able to score some more points. You just wish the offense would have been like, let's try to take advantage and go out with this lead in the first half, and then try to pad it coming out of the second half, and really put the pressure on New Orleans.
Take it to them.
They
had every chance to take it to them.
The Bears never do that. They never take it to anybody. They try to hang close and then win it at the end. I want them to bury somebody.
Yeah, or at least put some sustained pressure, because every time it looked like momentum could swing the Bears' way. Every time they got a break, they just said, nope, we don't want to take advantage of it. We'll just go 3 and out, or we'll just do something dumb, and we will just completely throw away that opportunity you gave us in the blink of an eye. You had a real chance. And look, I'm not saying if the Bears would have had a lead at halftime, they would have won this game. I'd still be inclined to say they'd lose, but put on higher your chances of winning go up. I mean, because you can get into their heads. You can frustrate them. You can cause them to do things that they wouldn't normally do out of panic or desperation. And you had chances to put that pressure on. I mean, look, the Wims drop is probably the most cringy part of the game. That's one area where you can say that wasn't coaching, that wasn't Mitch, that wasn't the O-line. That was just straight up Javon Wims not catching that pass. A pass that gets caught, I'm going to guess, 99% of the time. I mean, it was just a flat drop. But everything else, you can't point to one area. Like we've said the past few years, whenever the Bears fail, you point all around, and the big chinks in the armor of this team really, really stand out, and pretty much everything was exposed today. Like the only positive I took away from this game was I thought the Saints were going to really put up some points against the Bears, and I got to give the defense credit for holding the way it did. And now towards the end, it fell apart, but you know what? If that point, it was pretty much over anyway. So, I mean, heck, I'll give them this. They were able to stand tough at the goal line, even though the defense was starting to fall apart and the tackles were not being made. You know, they held pretty strong compared to where I thought they would be. Everything else, there are no positives to take away from the offense. There are no positives away to take from the coaching or really even the special teams. I mean, they didn't really do anything bad. They didn't do really anything good. Hey, at least we didn't miss any field goals this playoffs. You know, the silver linings, right?
You know, it was honestly, the offense stunk, but honestly, the biggest issue in this game was boneheaded plays.
Yeah.
You know, a drop, a wide open drop, boneheaded. The 15. I want to call the one with Cole Kmet the 15-yarder a boneheaded play, but that was bullshit. I can't.
I'm sorry, that was bullshit.
I think they threw it because they thought he threw it at the other player, but doesn't the ref that catches the ball go, nah, he threw it to me? Like, I literally caught the ball. It went right to me. I'm
not blaming the Bears or Kmet for that one. I thought that was tacky.
But the Dion Bush missed tackle that would have, you know, been brought up fourth down. Boneheaded play calling, the dumb penalty by Cordero Patterson to running out of bounds, and that would have been a running into the kicker, would have gotten automatic first, or would have got you a first down by penalty. And it ended up being negated.
Oh, he dropped an F-bomb on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, and you had the Anthony Miller punching a guy and getting kicked out, dumb play. The fact that you had 3rd and 2 and you took out David Montgomery and put in Ryan Nall, stupid. Eddie Jackson.
That whole sequence was stupid. You didn't even use a damn timeout. They just sat there like tra-la-la-la-la.
Eddie Jackson jumping off sides to give them a first down. Dumb.
Oh, Sean, I just have to say this. Eddie Jackson has really disappointed me this year. Really, really disappointed me.
But honestly, it's all the defensive backs just looked confused all season long. And I'm starting to point to, you know, obviously there's got to be some culpability on the players' part, but what point is it the scheme? Because they were all great with Vic Fangio. Like, at the bare minimum, like, doesn't Chuck Pagano got to go?
Look, I think he does, and I think it is definitely a reason why they've struggled at times. I'm not going to deny that. But some of the mistakes Eddie Jackson has made, that's just I think it's just flat on him, and I don't get it. I really don't.
I'm not saying that there's not mistakes on everybody. It's just they all, as a group, look so confused. And this game, you got pressure with your front four. Manti Te'o actually played a pretty solid game. Playing. I'm
going to hand it to him, man. Good for him.
You know, he looked solid. And I just, like, the defensive backs, just the bad tackling. Here's my thing. Okay. We all know the game plan with the Bears, offense is playing the Bears, defense is quick passes so you don't have to block Khalil Mack very long. Like, it's that's what they do. They get the ball out quick. But why, if you know this, you know what? There's no way we can get a pass rush to the quarterback fast enough. Why aren't the defensive backs playing press coverage? Because they know they're going to have to get the ball out quick. Don't play so far off.
Soft.
It's you give them an open target. Like, I don't understand the way the defensive play calling in your system. Like, you know what? If they're doing that, adjust something, change something. Well, that's what they're doing against us. What are we going to do? Derp, derp, derp. I'm flat out annoyed. And the thing is you can't just blitz that because, and you know, they're still just going to get the ball out really quick. And then you just have one less defender out there. So your blitzes are ineffective. You've got to press. You've got to jump routes. You got to press. You can't let tight ends run wide open in the center of the field. You can't have Danny Trevathan covering one of their fastest wide receivers. Like these are things you just can't do. And I think we both are at this point where we agree, regardless of what we bet on earlier, is that the odds are probably in the favor of Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace returning, regardless of whether or not they should be fired. The odds are they probably are returning. Somebody has to fall, right? You lost 6 straight. Somebody's got to be the scapegoat. Last year, it was the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach, right? Is it Chuck Pagano this year?
I think he's got to be one of them.
Somebody's got to go. I think it's going to be Chuck Pagano, and I think it's going to be Mike Furry, the wide receiver coach.
Yeah. I mean, if you're keeping Nagy and Pace, then yeah, I think those are your top guys to go then. Again, I'm not saying they should keep Nagy or Pace, but to your point, yes, I think that Chuck Pagano would be first on that list because we've seen the defense struggle at times, even though it wasn't as much today until the end. We have seen them struggle. We have seen the secondary just leave guys wide open, soft coverage all year. And it's frustrating as hell because there's a lot of talent on this defense. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that.
It's just infuriating that this piss poor ownership, like, you know what? And it's fine. It's fine if you own a team that you inherited and you don't know anything about football. That's fine. Like, not everybody's going to know about football. But stop appointing yourself to be top positions. Stop going, well, you know what? We're making money and we've done a few things here along the way, and hang your hat on it. Is you haven't won a Super Bowl since the 85 season. Like, that's not good. It's not good. Like, something's got to change. And I don't know why they can't recognize that. It's create a firewall. Own the team, step back, create a firewall between you and the day-to-day decisions. Eric Lambert, who, I'm sure you know who he is. But there's a lot of things he writes that I wholeheartedly disagree with. But lately, I've been finding myself agreeing with a lot that he says. And I saw he threw out there is make the offer to Ozzie Newsome, who has stepped back a lot and sort of has an emeritus role with the Ravens because he wanted to open the spot up as the general manager for Eric DaCosta because a lot of teams were sniffing him out and trying to hire him when he was an assistant. And they were like, you know what, we've got to promote this guy or he's going to go. And, this might be a good role for him being a president of football operations because he's a very smart guy. He's done incredibly well. He's built teams up. He's drafted well. He's made smart free agent decisions, both in signing players and not signing players. And, this might be a good role where he still has a lot of input, but as a 65-year-old man, it's not the same rigors of all the day-to-day work. You would be helping hire the GM and the GM bouncing things off of you, helping make decisions, overseeing things, making sure that the long-term goals are being met, because more and more the general manager position is is becoming a short-term goal situation, and you need somebody there making sure that the long-term health of your organization and franchise, as far as the football side of things goes, is met. And the Bears don't have that. It's Ted Phillips, who, whenever they need to hire a new GM, they have to ask an adult, who should we hire? Ernie Corsi, who should we hire?
You mean Dinosaur Corsi, as I like to call him?
Yeah, why in the world? I would be embarrassed if I had to hire Ernie Corsi to help me make a decision.
Oh, I know. I think somebody said the Bears are playing this game like it's the 80s. It's like, yeah, well, they haven't been relevant since the 80s. And going back to that, it was pretty much summed up when seemingly every first down play was a run play and the run game could not get going. And instead of making adjustments, they continue to do the same crap over and over. And that right there is one of the many problems with this team. You would think that things not working, you would try to make adjustments, but you don't. And the Bears don't try to adjust their philosophy. They're the same, just blah philosophy every year, year in, year out, and that's why we don't win. I mean, it's not a winning organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's infuriating. We're not a relevant organization. We hire shitty GMs that shouldn't be GMs, and it's infuriating. We don't make the right decisions. We don't develop talent. So we make bad free agent decisions. we make poor draft decisions. So many misses. It's fine if you want to miss in taking a stab at somebody in the 4th round. Okay, but you better hit you can't say a home run on everyone because that's impossible, but every first round pick should at least be a double, bare minimum. Every first round pick should be a double, triple, or home run.
How many times have we seen other teams just find guys out of nowhere? They plug them in. They look great. And then there are the Bears scratching their heads. Why didn't this guy work out? Why didn't this guy work out? Why didn't this guy work out? Seems to be a common theme.
You had the Rams started an arena football guy at quarterback, and you had the Washington football team start a guy that I never heard of, Taylor Meineke, and one of those teams won, and the other one played a pretty tough game. So it was like,
yeah, he did. Give him credit.
And the Bears had the number 2 overall pick and had 0 third down conversions until less than 2 minutes in the game.
And how many times, like we've seen all year, third down, let's throw short of the first down marker. How many? It seemed like every time. And then you watch the Saints. Every time they had third down, hey, why don't we throw past the first down marker so we can get a first down? What a novel concept. It's like, it feels like the Bears exist not to grasp that, like basic winning stuff. That's the best way I can describe it. They don't grasp basic winning stuff, and I'm going to use the word stuff because I want to, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, like you're in this game. Your longest run from the line of scrimmage was 7 yards. And that was Mitch Trubisky scrambling after the 2-minute warning. You make bad personnel decisions. the thing that got you into the playoffs, where you figured things out at the end of the year, was based on running the ball first. And I'm not saying it made you a good team by any stretch. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is that it made you an offense that scored some points, and because granted, you were playing against piss poor defenses, and you know what? All the people that are out there going, the Bears did this. They did this at the end of the season. Look at them. They played
against horrible teams.
They played crappy teams, crappy defenses, and that's who they did it against. But still, they did it by running the ball and establishing the run, and they went away from the run so early in this game, and it set you up for the rest of the day. David Montgomery ran 12 times. You had 13 rushes in a game where the other team only had 21 points, and you only ran 13 times. And Mitch threw 29 times. That is what happens. Is look at the ratio of run to pass, and the Browns are up 21-0. Holy cow. Anyways,
if the Browns hold the score, they will have a more recent playoff win than the Bears. Let that sink in.
But look at the Mitch Trubisky or the Bears offense run pass ratio in the games at the end of the year when they ran the ball, or they won against those shitty teams. But look at the run pass balance in those games, and then look at today, and it went back to what Matt Nagy does. I feel like he took control of the reins for the playoff game. I honestly do.
It feels like it. I mean, just the way. The first play of the game was a freaking what? For the Bears offensively, it was like a screen pass that went for 2 yards.
It's infuriating. Ross Reed tweeted out that, certain plays, it was after a certain play that you can't blame everything on the play callers, and absolutely true. So I'm not gonna take away any blame from the players, because there is a lot of blame to go around with the players. But honestly, it was a team loss. Is that the GM put a shit team together. The head coach is stubborn, bullheaded, and a coward, and makes bad personnel decisions and terrible clock management decisions. Your players didn't make the plays they needed to make, and you don't have a quarterback. And I don't care if you're a Bears fan and you're listening to this and you're like, if you give Mitch a good offensive line, no, that is a loser mentality.
We can't play that. We can't play that game anymore. We just can't.
Of course, you want a better offensive line, but you know what? We need a quarterback. Hands down. You can't win in this league without a quarterback. Look at the quarterbacks that are still in this. And so the Saints are going to the next round. They have a Hall of Fame quarterback. The Steelers are playing now. They have a Hall of Fame quarterback. They're playing the Browns, who have the number 1 pick overall in the draft at the quarterback. The Ravens have an MVP at quarterback. They're on to the next round. The Buccaneers are on to the next round. They have a Hall of Fame quarterback. The Rams are on to the next round, and Goff was the number 1 pick in the draft. The Bills are going on, and they have a potential MVP at quarterback. Which team?
The more he plays, the more I like him.
Honest to God, I love Josh Allen is who we thought Mitch Trubisky was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
don't forget the 2 number 1 seeds.
Oh yeah, the 2 number 1 seeds is Hall of Fame quarterback and MVP. So it's, if you're going to be, well, if you could get a serviceable guy like Mitch and then you put a good offensive line in front of him. No, you need a quarterback. You need a quarterback. Look at, it's just absolutely that you have to have a quarterback. Unless you have a running game.
Serviceable can get you to the playoffs, but you want to win Super Bowls. You don't want to just get to the playoffs like they did this year.
Yeah,
it's not going to get
there's
you.
Every couple of years there's a team that just runs the ball incredibly well that make noise. But they're not sustainable. The Tennessee Titans made a lot of noise because Derrick Henry was running all over the place and they made it to the playoffs. But guess what? They went home. Is the San Francisco 49ers ran all over the place, made it to the Super Bowl. They lost, and now they're terrible. So running the ball, being a team that plays good defense and runs the ball incredibly well is not a recipe for sustained success. That is intermittent success. It just doesn't work. You need a quarterback. Unless you're the Ravens and you have an MVP quarterback that can run and it makes your running game better and you play good defense, but that's a different animal. Is the Bears you can't keep patchworking this. You got to get the quarterback situation right before you get anything else right.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers are primed right now to get to the Super Bowl, and look what Aaron Rodgers can do. That's something that you dream of. You don't dream of serviceable anymore. Again, Bears, it's not the 80s anymore. You don't ground and pound and just have serviceable at quarterback. You need a good one.
Yeah. Like I said,
you need a good one.
Like I said, you can do that occasionally. You cannot do that with sustained success.
No, you can't. And you also cannot sit there and just say, you know what? We have to do this, and this for our quarterback. If you have a list of things you have to do for your quarterback, that just shows that there's way too many weaknesses. You can put high schoolers around Aaron Rodgers and he'd make them look good. Where Mitch, we have to adjust the game plan to this, and this. We have to get him the perfect offensive line. We have to get him the perfect receivers. We have to do all this stuff for him so that he's not bad. That is not what you want as your quarterback on a team that you want to win a Super Bowl with.
It doesn't matter what wide receivers you put out there with Aaron Rodgers. He makes them look good. And Mitch, you're like,
right.
Well, I've got to get Pro Bowl wide receivers, and we have to have a great running game. And you have to make a perfect team in order to make a serviceable quarterback work. Whereas if you have a great quarterback, he masks all these other things, and that's what you do. And the thing is, and then once you have a winning quarterback, it makes it so much easier to keep a winning quarterback because you figure that out. It makes all of you're not redrafting positions because they make these guys better. And then you have a position like Green Bay where they're like, all right, we have Brett Favre, so we can draft Aaron Rodgers in the first round and just stash him away for a couple of years. And then you're like, well, now we have Aaron Rodgers and we can draft this other guy in the first round, stash him away for a couple of years, and continue our success when Aaron Rodgers is gone. And that's what you do. But when you have a crappy quarterback, you're constantly like, okay, well, what are we going to do for quarterback? And you're throwing money at this problem. You're throwing draft picks at this problem, and it never gets fixed. It's like when rich people, they're like, well, I have this extra money, let me invest it. And then they just keep growing their wealth, where people that are poor are like, I can't do that. I can't build wealth because I'm barely keeping afloat paying my bills. Every cent I get as a paycheck, it's already spent and more on bills. So I can't invest to have a future. It's that same type of thing. You can't get ahead when you have a bad quarterback. And when you have a good quarterback, you can start building for the long term. You're like, I'm gunning for for Super Bowls, but I'm able to draft for the future because I have this luxury of having the same starting quarterback for 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. Remember last week when we were playing that game of want to hear some sad stats for the Bears the past 20 years? Well, I have one more I'd like to share with you, and I just want to put this all in perspective right now.
All right.
Okay. So, from 1991 to 2020, so we're going to go 30 years here. So we're gonna count the start as 91 because we're in 2021 now. So 1991, 2021, 30 years. That's a pretty long time, right?
That I would say that is
over 3 decades worth of season.
Yeah, I would say it's a long time.
4 playoff wins. 4.
The Browns are up 28-0. Yeah, that's not good. 4 playoff wins and
do you know how many total playoff games?
I'm going to say 8.
Little more.
10.
Little more.
12.
There you go. So, just to go back, you lost in the wild card round in 1991. In 1994, you beat the Vikings in the wild card round, and then you lost to the 49ers. 2001, you lost to the Eagles in the first round. 2005, you lost to the Panthers in the first round. 2006, you beat the Seahawks, then you beat the Saints in the NFC Championship, and then you lost the Super Bowl. 2010, you beat the Seahawks, then you lost to Green Bay in the NFC Championship. 2018, you lost to the Eagles on the double doink, and then we just lost to the Saints. So there you go. So for the past 30 years, since 1991, the Bears are 4-8 in the playoffs. 4-8 over 30 years. So 12 playoff games in 30 years. You may think, oh, that's not that bad, but take a minute to think about it. Take a minute to think about it. How over 30 years you've played in a grand total of 12 playoff games.
It's sad.
That's not a lot.
That's really sad.
And we just played in a playoff game where we all pretty much wrote them off in this game. And Sean, here's what gets me. I was mentally preparing for the show tonight before the game even started. I was mainly thinking I was going to say, this is what we expected. This is where we're at. I don't really have any feelings towards it because at the end of the day, I just took this game as nothing more than being an extra week and an opportunity to watch a playoff game. Something that we do not do very often these days is watch Bears playoff football. We don't watch that much. I mean, the Bears have made the playoffs 3 times since 2007. That's over a decade. But we end up being a lot more frustrated and annoyed because of how they lost this game. Not because they just simply got overpowered by a better team. Not because, greater players just kept making greater plays. So much of it was because the Bears shot themselves in the foot and they played conservative, scared football. If they would have gotten blown out and they just tried to do everything they could, empty the tank, and it just wasn't working because it wasn't meant to be, it would still stink, but we'd expect it. But the fact that you played so conservative, that you had no guts whatsoever in this game, that you made so many dumb mistakes, makes it all the more disappointing. And Sean, I want to point out one more thing about this game specifically, going back to the whole playing scared thing. I don't know how you felt, but this is how I felt. Late in the game, the Bears had the ball, and, lo and behold, They had 3 downs that they couldn't get. It was in the fourth quarter, and you were in your own territory, but you were down 21-3 with your season on the line, and they punted. I don't know how you felt, but I said, "Why the fuck? Just go for it." At this point, who cares?
Yeah,
go for it.
That's the whole thing. I don't understand is you're playing with house money. Just go for it. Throw everything against the wall. That nobody expects you to win. Nobody expects you to win. The national media are laughing at you. They put the game on Nickelodeon. Like, just go out there and throw everything at them. Throw the kitchen sink at them. Yeah, even if you lose, make them remember that they had to play you. And hang your hat on that. You go out as a coward and soft, it's just a laughing stock. And I don't know how you come back from that.
I just think it's a shame. It's the playoffs. I mean, you can look at this game. You can look at the final results of this game, 21-9. You can look at the way everything went down, all the bad penalties, all the stupid stuff, all the conservative play. You would look at this and think, wow, let me guess, this was probably just some game in late November, early December. No, this was the playoffs. And whether or not you were good or not, if you are in the playoffs, you empty the tank and do anything you can to try to give yourself a win. The Bears were not expected by anybody to win this game or forward. They weren't. So, really, you don't have much to disappoint. The stakes were much higher in 2018 when you looked like a legitimate contender. But in this game, yeah, you were 8-8. Yeah, you're really not that good. But you know what? You're still there. You're still in the playoffs. Why not try to give it your all? And I don't want to hear the excuse that Nagy was trying to save his job by being conservative. Being conservative, in my opinion, hurts your job chances even more. Because I don't want to be the owner of a team and say that my coach went out and gave a gutless effort.
It's one thing, like playing conservative, if you're a team that legitimately it's a tight game. So, like, if in that, I don't know, it's a tight game, like Tennessee Ravens today. If they would have played conservatively, because the game is close and you're just trying to keep it close and win the game. Okay, that's fine. Like, if you're a team that has a legit chance to win this game, the Bears didn't. Unless they just threw the kitchen sink at them and caught them off guard, there was no chance for this team to actually win the game. And they still went out there and played conservatively. They played themselves conservatively into a blowout. It's the most John Foxian thing I could have imagined.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm annoyed with this game. A game I should not be annoyed with. A game that I had no expectations for whatsoever. Hey, if it was 21-10 at halftime in favor of the Saints, and the Saints were just flat beating you, I'd just say, well, this is kind of what I expect, whatever. But I found myself at halftime punching the pillow on my couch thinking, we could be winning this game. We could be really winning this game right now. We could be stealing this right now. The fact that the Bears will make you mad even when you tell yourself that you're not expecting anything, only the Bears can do that. It's frustrating as hell, man.
It really is. You had nothing to lose, everything to gain, and you still lost, which is amazing. You're like, we have nothing to lose, and you still lost it. How does that happen? Just go out there and throw it against the wall and make it work.
And that right there, that's the statement I want to emphasize. I don't want to take anything away from the Saints, but to me, it felt more like the Bears lost this game than the Saints winning, despite the Bears being such heavy underdogs, despite the Saints being so better coached and just with a much better roster, it feels like a true Bears loss because of how many times they shot themselves in the foot.
I just want to put this
And
out
again,
there.
I want to emphasize this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Las Vegas, they're pretty good. I mean, you could tell by how much money they make and their big extravagant buildings that they're not good at losing money, and they're good at making money. When they set the odds for these games, they're pretty darn good at it. And when they set the odds for the Bears, they were a double-digit underdog. When they set the odds for the Rams, they didn't even know what quarterback was playing. Is it the quarterback with the broken thumb or the backup quarterback from the Arena Football League? And they set the line the same thing. They're, whatever, we're okay with it. That team is going to do what they do. And you're like, what the hell? That's how badly coached we are. Is a team that's going to start they're either going to start an injured quarterback or a guy that's from the Arena League, and they're giving them the same odds. And the Bears are just like, well, they're starting their number one quarterback, and we got to put them double-digit underdogs. Like, that's embarrassing. That means the betting world said, yep, we're expecting a blowout in this game, and they got it.
Yeah, I wanted to emphasize this too. I'm not saying that if the Bears would have played better in the first half that they would have just went on and won. I still think at the end of the day the Saints would have pulled it out. They would have gotten serious and they would have pulled it out. But you could have put forth a much better effort, I feel. And at least given fans, I don't believe in consolation, but at least you could say they gave it their all. They just weren't good enough. But let's look at it from another perspective, too. If they would have done that, if they would have just barely lost and said, you know what, we actually played pretty well, the other team was just better, then you know what, then maybe you run the risk of saying, you know what, let's just run this team back like it is next year. So maybe, I don't know. And we might see a lot of things happen by the time we record this podcast and people actually listen to it. Again, we record this right after the game, but maybe this effort is what does bring some change, and maybe not. I don't know, but only time will tell for that. I'm just looking at it from two different perspectives.
Here's the thing. So in the end, the final score was 21-9 in favor of the Saints. So a 12-point loss. But do you know how incredibly close this came to being 28-3?
Half a yard.
Not even. It was maybe 3 inches. 3 inches from going 28. and it was an incredible catch by Jimmy Graham. Who wasn't even the target of that throw. It was whoever the wide receiver was. He was the target. Jimmy Graham just went up and got it. So had Jimmy Graham not gone up and one hand jumped up and got that, then it's 28-3.
Yeah.
It's incredibly frustrating. And, like you said, Alex, is we're recording this right after the game. And so who knows what's going to happen by the time you guys listen to this. But I'm of the mind that somebody's going to be a scapegoat, and we're going to see essentially the same structure of Ted Phillips, Ryan Pace, and Matt Nagy back.
And if that happens, I have to buy you a pizza, and that makes me sadder.
And it's going to be the most delicious pizza ever.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring it to you. I'm going gonna like ring your doorbell. I'm gonna just have it to you. I'm gonna say, "Here's your fucking pizza," and then I'm just gonna just drop it on your doorstep and then walk away.
Fuck you and your pizza.
I spat on it. I have one more little slight game I wanted to play. This will only take a minute. I am doing. I think Lance Briggs does this. I just commented on one of his posts.
Is it about the grading?
Let me find it. Yes. Yeah. I wanted to see what your grades were for offense, defense, special teams, coaching. I have mine. I figured I'd read mine and see if you agree or disagree.
Okay.
Offense, F.
Yes. Agree.
Coaching, F.
Agree.
Special teams, C.
Agree.
Now, this is where there might be some controversy. Defense, I put B minus, and it may seem generous to give them a B minus, but again, they kept him in the game.
You had all of their weapons back. Like they only had 60 snaps together with Kamara and Michael Thomas and Drew Brees, and you got all those guys healthy again. And you held them to 21. I would say B minus C plus is a fair grade.
All right, so we're pretty much on the same page here. That's cool. That's why we are broadcast partners.
Yeah, I mean the only thing I could say that could make that defensive grade go down is towards the end there was some just piss poor tackling.
Oh yeah.
Other than that, they ultimately played pretty well.
Yeah. And hey, you know what? Give them credit too for causing that takeaway. They almost had 2 interceptions. I mean, They made some nice plays and they had some nice pressure.
That Duke Shelley one, man, was so incredibly close. I mean, it's amazing. So many plays, they're like, we don't have enough evidence to overrule it. And that one, they just they pinpointed they had the perfect view of it. And it was the ball touched the ground. I'm like, man, I watched it. I was like, that's and that was a fair overturn. I'm like, that one is fair. I don't like it, but it's fair. But he made a great play on it because that was not an easy catch. So, they could have had 2 interceptions on Drew Brees.
Yep. But alas, 'twas not to be. Hey, but you know what? The 8-8 Bears finished with a point differential of +2. Yay!
They were the epitome of just average, middle of the road team.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about that playoff game. I feel like it's going to be one of those moments where the Bears were in the playoffs, but we're not going to look back at this at all. I mean, we shouldn't look back at this for any reason, but when we think of playoff teams, we're not going to be thinking of the 2020 Bears unless we're looking for a good laugh or something sad. I mean, it's not like they were. I mean, 2018, you were one and done in heartbreaking fashion, but that team looked legit, and that team had 12 wins, and they won the division. And this team squeaked in at 8-8. They backed into the playoffs, and again, the results of the game, watching the game, did not feel like we were watching a playoff game. And it also didn't help that the crowd was very small, but very, very forgettable game. Let's just say that. But you know what? I loved the Nickelodeon broadcast. It was very nostalgic for me. I grew up with Nickelodeon. I thought that was pretty well done because when I was first watching it, I was expecting it to be, okay, this is probably going to be too kiddish. This is probably going to be kind of annoying. But, I enjoyed it. They were really good at explaining basic rules to young kids and families, and they brought back a lot of nostalgic stuff that can relate to young adults like me. So that is one thing I will say I really enjoyed about this game was the Nickelodeon broadcast. Everything else was crap. But hey, I had 3 hours of Bears playoff football. That's more than I've seen in most of my life, unfortunately.
Yeah, and let's be honest here. is the way this team played. Let's just say things went right. Javon Wims catches that. And they don't throw that flag on Cole Kmet, and they get the touchdown there. And the Bears pull this one out. Okay? They go to Green Bay.
Yeah, that's one nice thing.
Like, we would all have to waste 3 hours of next week going, why the hell are we watching this? Embarrassing. You know what? I think it's all fair to say that we all want Green Bay to lose. And I want to see, I don't know if you watched the Rams Seahawks game at all.
I did.
Russell Wilson ran for his life that entire game. Nonstop pressure. Every time he snapped the ball, there was pressure. I hope that same Rams defense, I hope they bring that to Green Bay and you see Aaron Rodgers getting hit left and right. I would love to see that. And the Bears will not bring that. Maybe the Rams will. I can guarantee the Bears will not. Maybe the Rams will.
No. I mean, I bet you even if we squeaked this one out today, we'd probably get embarrassed for a third time in a year against Green Bay. And losing to them twice a year is bad enough. Losing to them 3 times a year, ugh. That is the one bright spot I'm taking away, is that we don't have to deal with this frustration anymore for another year, and then we don't have to get embarrassed by Green Bay again.
Yep, and that's what happened, and it would have given Green Bay an easy route to the NFC Championship game, and none of us want that.
Yep. No.
I think going into this, we had no expectation of going to the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl. I don't think even the most delusional Bears fan did, but we could all agree that Green Bay sucks, and we don't want them to win, and this Bears losing gives them the best possible chance of losing. So you're like, okay, they got to play the Rams, who, man, they're not going to put up many points, but man, that defense was looking tough. And you have, and then they're going to have to play the winner of the Saints and the Buccaneers. You're like, okay, all right, well, they're going to have to play a good team there. So it's like, give the Green Bay chance to lose. The most chances to lose. And if they play the Bears, they played nobody in the first round and nobody in the second round, and they just prance their way into the NFC Championship game.
Yep, pretty much.
You want to talk baseball?
Sure.
And there's not a lot going on, but we had talked previously that the Cubs, maybe there's an opportunity that we sign Kyle Schwarber to a smaller deal, something less than what his arbitration number would have been. And we held out hope because we're like, he hasn't signed anywhere. He signed a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Nationals. So he is going to Washington. So that ship has sailed. And you've seen no bit of financial movement in the positive direction for the Cubs organization. And that is basically where we're standing.
Yep. Yeah, and we're really just sitting here waiting for the potential of Chris Bryant and or Wilson Contreras being traded, and those talks are really gaining steam. It sounds like there's conversations with other teams out there. We've heard the Mets with Chris Bryant, who are not messing around. They just got Lindor. We are hearing about Wilson Contreras and the Angels. And while it's been all talk, the old saying, when there's smoke, there's a fire. Are working hard to move these guys. And Sean, they're moving these guys to dump salary.
Oh, absolutely. We fully expect
that's what they're doing.
Fully expect the hauls for these two players to be dog shit.
Yep.
Because the mandate is in that they have to dump these salaries and you have a league where, because of COVID, teams don't want to spend money. Most teams don't want to spend money and take on salary. So you have a very small pool of teams willing to take on some of these bigger contracts like a Yu Darvish. So essentially you're dealing with less teams than you normally would. And you're like, okay, got to take whatever I can get. And you're just basically having a fire sale and you're getting nothing. And, you had a guy with all kinds of trade value with Darvish. Now you have a guy with little trade value in Chris Bryant. I don't expect anything for him. You're probably going to get more 19-year-olds who maybe they end up being good, but they probably won't. And you're going to dump Wilson Contreras, a power hitting, catcher that can hit for average, and you're going to dump him for pennies on the dollar.
This upcoming Cubs season could end up being like Pirates level bad, depending on what they do here. We haven't seen officially any trades yet, but hey, who knows what could happen within the next any minute, really, any minute. But look, you could get a slew of young prospects that are in their teens, and if you have confidence and you can develop these guys, great. But just remember that it is going to take several years to develop these guys. So you could be in for a long-term rebuild here if you do sell off as many of these guys as you do. And look, if we were saying, you know what, we're going to rebuild for the sole purpose of we need to tear it down because these guys aren't playing like we expected to, and we want to build with young stud prospects that have a reputation, that's one thing, because you could say, you know what, if we get a bunch of established young stud prospects, then you could rebuild fairly fast. But if we're doing this because of salary dump, yeah, you can rebuild with all this, but it is going to take much longer. It's going to be much more frustrating, and the chances of success go down.
If you're rebuilding to get, because players aren't living up to their expectations, and you're sort of just like, you know what, we're going to dump them before we have to sign them to long-term contracts. It's you trade Darvish for players in the top 5 of that farm system of San Diego. You get players that are ready to come into the league this year or next year. Period. You know who they are. You're like, okay, I've seen these guys. I have a track record. You don't go with long shot guys who've no minor league experience.
Yeah, it's much riskier. It's much more grueling. It's much more to ask of your fan base, who is in a position where they're not going to be as patient because of this reason. And you are living in what was supposed to be the middle of a World Series window.
That window closed real quick. Real quick.
Yeah, it did.
And here's the thing.
Sure did.
Do you expect a full-on tank at any point? Like mid-season, if they're just out of it, do you think they sell a Kyle Hendricks?
Sure.
Do you think they part ways with an Anthony Rizzo?
Yeah.
I mean,
at this rate, yeah.
We are absolutely, I think, in the midst of a complete teardown and rebuild. And you can't tell me otherwise, because look at the minor league system, and honestly maybe part of things is, are they going to get so bad that the next opportunity that Jason Hayward has to opt out, he's going to opt out?
I don't know. I think he'd take that money. I would.
I mean, it's. I mean, I don't have. When you're going to do a retool, you don't get rid of your best pitcher that you have under contract. The guys that you have in the minor leagues now you don't have you don't have studs in the top 100 of minor league baseball. You have a weak farm system, and you don't have any pitching. Like you don't have any pitching. So I like what are you expecting? Like where if this is let's take one step back so we can take a step forward next year. What is the realistic expectation of stepping forward next year? You're not one free agent away from being competitive. You're going to move Bryant, you're going to move Wilson Contreras. So where is this? What's the timeline for you to actually be competitive again? And if it's more than a year or two, then that's a rebuild.
Yes.
It's not like,
Yes.
We had a lot of injuries. We're just going to poop the bed. We're going to sell a few pieces and then retool. You don't have anything to retool with. You're not spending money. You don't have anything in the farm system that's anywhere close to being ready to be impactful. So where are you growing? Where are you getting better? What is your plan? There's no communication of that. And I can't see any logical place for the Cubs to go to get better for next year.
No, because you're not going to sell off everything, have one bad year, and say, "Oh, we're going to fill our roster with all-stars again. Let's do it." No, that's not going to happen. I think it's really annoying that we have to sit here and watch this all happen, and we have to watch the Cubs with all these goodbye and thank yous, and never welcome to the teams. We said goodbye to Kyle Schwarber. We said goodbye to Yu Darvish. We have not welcomed in any big-time players for several years now. I guess you could count Craig Kimbrell, but that hasn't worked out as well. But other than that, not much.
Okay, here, let's play a game.
Uh-huh.
So we all agree the Cubs are probably going to suck this year, right?
If they keep trading off, yes.
Okay. Who do you expect to be their starting left fielder this year? Or, sorry, next season.
Knowing the way they're going cheap, at this rate, it might as well be Nick Martini, right?
So who do you have it in left field?
I'm just going to say Nick Martini because I don't know who else you're going to put out there.
Okay. Center field. Who are you putting out there? Who you got there? Hap. Right field, Hayward. Third base.
Well, I think Chris Bryant is going to be traded. So that's the case. Right now, I'm going to say David Bodie.
Okay. Baez, your short?
Yeah, he's the one guy I'm pretty confident they're not going to deal right now.
Who's your second baseman?
Nico.
Rizzo at first. Who's catching for you?
Mm-hmm. David Ross, player manager? Just kidding. Well, if they're going to... I mean, Contreras, if he's still here, but if not Contreras, you're going to have to bring in somebody.
Do you bring up Amaya?
I think, you know what I'm going to say? No, he's not ready yet. No, they can't. I'm going to say this name because they've been linked to him. I'm going to say Jason Castro.
Okay. And what's your starting rotation?
Hendricks 1.
Okay.
Zach Davies 2.
Mm-hmm.
Say Ebert Alzolay 3.
Okay.
Alec Mills 4.
Mm-hmm.
5. I'm going to say they're going to bring old John Lester back on like a tiny ass deal, but he's going to come in with a Kanan Walker.
Okay. So we've gone through that. Now, if this is really a retool, you look at that as, all right, we're going to take a year back, step back, and then compete again the next year. So what's your roster for 2022 then? Because at this point, we're going to go from 2021. You have to take a big step up from left field, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say you have to take a big step up at third base.
Yes.
You got another year older on Rizzo.
Mm-hmm.
Is Horner the answer? I don't know. You got to take a step up from catcher, which you at least have pipeline. You have pipeline there. Zach Davies is gone. There's no way John Lester is in a starting rotation for a competitive team in 2022. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I highly doubt it.
So that means your starting rotation of Hendricks, Alzolay, and Mills from the previous year, not only do you have to get better, you have to find 2 more starters. So how in the world can you explain to me how you get better there when there's at least, so I'm going to say catcher, maybe one of your catchers in your minor league system is ready to play in 2022.
I think Amaya's current outlook is 2022.
You need a left fielder. Is anybody in your farm system ready to come up in 2022? Maybe. Do you have another infielder?
Brennan Davis is going to be the one big guy in the outfield.
Do you have a third baseman? You know, maybe it ends up being a shortstop that comes up and you move Baez to third. I don't know. But you have to get better there.
Ed Howard is a ways away, so
He's a ways away. So it's like, do you go out? Are you going to spend money for 2022 and bring in 2 legit starters and a third baseman? That doesn't seem legit.
your top starting pitchers for 2022 on the free agent market are going to be Zach Greinke, Justin Verlander, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer. Zach Greinke is 38.
And done.
Justin
He's pretty much done.
Verlander is 39.
And injured.
Yeah. Clayton Kershaw is not coming here. Max Scherzer is not coming here.
And all of those guys are old.
Yes.
Like you're not bringing those
So
guys
then
to
after that,
build.
you'll right.
Like those are guys that come at this point in their careers. They're going to try to come to a team that is one starter away from being a World Series team because they're trying to get that last payday / last World Series win. And honestly, none of those guys need money. They're all stupid rich. Like all those guys have.
They're all making over $30 million a year.
All of those guys have $200 million in the bank. So it's not even about money. It's about one last hurrah trying to get a World Series ring. They're not coming here. We don't have a team. You know, Hayward's another year older. What if Happ doesn't develop anymore? Is he good enough to be a starting center fielder for a World Series competitive team with the way he was last year? Maybe. But he can't be your best outfielder. He can't be your best outfielder. And he is. And then, you know, on the other side of town is you've got a garbage division. And the best player pretty much not on your team just got traded to not only out of the division, out of the conference. Why are the White Sox not jumping all over this opportunity to just be the juggernaut team in that division? They've only got a couple of spots that are where they're lacking. And why aren't they jumping all over this?
You think they're waiting for value to go down with some of these guys?
Maybe. But you know what? Is make a splash move. Is where bring in you need a closer. Either re-sign your closer or bring in a closer. So you need the closer. You need a right fielder. And you need another front end pitcher. Is, you know, the value. I mean, you know, obviously, which pitcher do you want? You're the White Sox.
Probably Trevor Bauer is one of them.
Okay. Do you see his value going down?
Not really. No.
There's only a couple of guys where their value, I think, is just going to place pretty steady. And I think he's one of them. If you're the White Sox, just go out and get him. You can bargain basement with your closer and your right fielder, you know, if you want to. But just go out there and get a stud pitcher. If you go out there with your top three is Lucas Giolito, Trevor Bauer, and Dallas Keuchel, that's a real hell of a 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it is. If Bauer pitches like he did last year, absolutely.
It's just frustrating. Is, you know, you have the room there at the White Sox to pay, because I think they're only 15th or something in the league in the salary. So you're in the middle. You can go up in salary. Make these moves, dominate your division. You're pretty much, if you bring in Trevor Bauer, even if you don't upgrade the other two positions, you're damn well almost guaranteed to win this division. And then you just set yourself up for the best case scenario in the playoffs. You know what? We're gonna run away with this division. And we all saw with the Cubs what a luxury it is to not have to be battling it out every single game at the end of the season, is to be able to set up your rotation, rest guys to make sure that they're not banged up and have nagging injuries, let them heal up and rest up, set your rotation so optimal, so you get your guys the way you want to. It's those type of things I think that could really be beneficial for you, and you're the White Sox should have that available. There's no competition in this division, you know?
No, there really isn't. They have a golden opportunity right here. I mean, look at Cleveland, man. I mean, Cleveland, you want to talk about being stingy. They've been on the verge of having a few good offensive pieces to really being a contender again, and they just refuse to spend the money, and now they just traded away one of their best players.
You know, the sad part about, we all knew Lindor was getting traded because they basically said, enjoy him while he's here, because he's not going to be here for long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is sad.
You know,
but
you can be mad at the Cubs.
It's good for the White Sox. I'll say that.
Oh, yeah. And you can be mad at the Cubs for, you know, whatever is going to happen with Chris Bryant, but they did make the offer. They threw a substantial offer at Chris Bryant, and he picked his agent because that's exactly what he wants. He wants the money. And you know, can you fault him for that? No, but you can't fault the Cubs for not overpaying either.
Yeah, and again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I know a lot of people like to bring up the Rick Hahn extensions of some of their core guys, and they asked why didn't they do it with Chris Bryant early on, yada yada. With Scott Boras, that was never happening.
Yeah, Scott Boras does
Moncada
not
and
do that.
Eloy got, no way that happens.
Yep,
no way.
And that's the thing when you draft a Scott Boras guy, is you're gonna have to deal with Scott Boras.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's frustrating being a Cubs fan, and I'm sure it's as exciting as it is being a White Sox fan. I would too want them to say, you know what, go out and make one more move. We're pretty much primed to win the division as it is, but one more move can really, really seal it and make you a legitimate contender. But hopefully we'll see some news soon. With the Cubs, I kind of want them to just rip the Band-Aid off. If you're going to trade these guys, I just trade them. I'm so tired of all the waiting and speculation. We've been speculating about Bryant trades the past 2-3 years now, and after a while you just get sick of hearing it over and over. And Sox fans, be thankful you're in a position where you are just trying to win, because that's a good place to be.
Yep. Well, at least we'll have one team that's competing for something soon. It'll be the White Sox. And the only other topic I have, Bulls fans, I'm sorry, we will talk Bulls more next week. There's a lot going on right now. We will talk Bulls next week. But the one thing I want to talk about is Corey Crawford retiring.
Yeah, that news hit pretty big yesterday, and we're only 3 days away from the regular season. So even though he wasn't on the Blackhawks, he was a member of the Devils. I mean, everyone was pretty much talking about him in context of the Blackhawks because he never played a game as a New Jersey Devil. But the timing, while surprising, overall where he is in his career, not surprising. We've seen the injury issues pile up, the concussion issues, him being a bit more inconsistent compared to where he normally was. It's a shame that he has to go out like this, but all I could say is you had a hell of a career, Corey Crawford, and you might be one of the most underappreciated athletes this city has ever seen.
I love Corey Crawford and everything he's done for this team. And, I heard rumblings about that he might retire a couple of days before he retired. And I was like, that's kind of crazy. I was not expecting that. And I was like, I think these are just crazy rumors. There's no way he's going to retire a couple of days before the start of the season, before he even played a game with his new team. And lo and behold, he does. And I wonder if there was some sort of lingering injury issue. Is the Corey Crawford we've known for a long time doesn't seem like a quitter. There must have been some sort of injury situation, and I can't imagine him signing that as a 2-year deal and then not even playing a single game.
Yeah, and I'm not going to really bring up specifics. I'm sure you're going to know what I'm talking about. But we have heard rumors about things. And again, we don't know if these rumors are true or not, so I don't even want to speculate, but I'm sure it does make people think. And yeah, I think it is safe to say that there was something more than him just waking up and saying, I'm done. But, either way, I think it's probably best for him long-term for his health. I'm no doctor. I'm not around him every day, but with the way those injuries were piling up, it's probably for the best.
We've said that for a couple of years, that it was just, I don't want to see him have all kinds of health issues after he retires and be one of those guys. It is better to hang it up a little early and play the what if game than hang it up too late and play the what if game.
Yeah. Now, here's something I will say. It sucks to see how many of these Blackhawks greats are just ending their careers on such sad, heartbreaking, terms. And I think that it says a lot about how each of the teammates has supported each other throughout all this. You heard really good things from Duncan Keith and other players that played around Crawford, really supportive of him. The team was so supportive for Brian Bickle and for Marian Hossa. And of course, they're very understanding with Jonathan Toews. I think that it really goes to speak for the good culture the Blackhawks have. I hate seeing all these stars, these Blackhawks stars, these guys that brought us Stanley Cups, going out on such sad terms. Bickle with MS. Who knows what's going to happen with Jonathan Toews? I mean, this whole Toews thing, what if this is career ending? Like, we don't know. That's the scary thing.
Yeah.
Look at Marian Hossa with the skin condition, and then Corey Crawford with the concussion issues. I mean, it's just really sad to see.
It really is. I mean, Jonathan Toews is still a really young guy.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not like he's 36, 37 and winding down. He's got plenty of years of hockey ahead of him. When you're in your low 30s and you see these players play for a very long time, and he's at over 300 goals, and you're thinking, man, at this pace, maybe he reaches 500 and all that stuff. But now I'm not so sure. What if we never see him play again?
I mean, look at how abruptly we lost Marian Hossa.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen in sports history losing people tragically to an accident or whatever.
Some sort of physical condition.
Well, I mean, we had plane crashes and motorcycle accidents and drug overdoses, and that we lost players and never got to see them ever. They lost their lives. We've had injuries, motorcycle injuries with the Bulls, where the player never was right after that. And with the Blackhawks, though, we've seen like the skin condition with Hossa. Whatever's going on with Toews, that it's just, I haven't heard anything. I don't know what's going on. You had MS with Brian Bickle, and you're just like, man, those are crazy things. Like, what are the odds you have one team with the three things like that, three different players?
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, with Corey Crawford and some other guys, you get hurt playing. That happens a lot. That does happen a lot. But it's some of the other stuff that you see. Like the Marian Hossa's skin condition thing, that came out of nowhere. But it sounds like it was something he was dealing with for a very long time. So I'm not saying it just suddenly popped up. I'm saying that we had no idea about it.
Right. It just, and hockey's pretty secretive about things. They're so vague in the injuries. And
upper body, lower body.
Yeah, upper body, lower body. And the crazy part is lower body could be, a knee contusion, or it could be you had your foot severed by an ice skate. Like, it's the same thing. Upper body could be broken arm or concussion. It's just the upper body, lower body. And they're so vague about it. And guys in hockey play through so much pain and injury that you don't know. You have no idea. Like, at the end of the season, that's like, it's one of my favorite / least favorite things is the end of a hockey season and you hear the horrific things players are playing through. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Who was the defenseman that played the rest of power play, you know, on the power, I'm sorry, he was playing the rest of the penalty kill with a broken leg. Who was that?
Oh, I remember that. I don't remember who it was, but I remember that. I also remember the guy that like got his side cut open with a skate and he was right back out there.
Yeah. You know, when Duncan Keith got all those teeth knocked out, he came back.
I'm so glad we won the Stanley Cup.
Does anyone know a dentist?
My dentist is named Quentis.
Your dentist is named Quentis?
Those interviews, that Stanley Cup run. Maybe that's why he became a dentist.
I had to run to Michael's this morning and pulled into a spot, and the person parked like right in front of me had a Michael Scott sticker on the trunk of their car where he was Prison Mike. The worst part was the Dementors.
It ate in your soul. Hoit!
I'm actually, the other day, I picked up the, it's basically like a behind the scenes story of The Office. And it's crazy at how many points that show almost got canceled. Like, they almost didn't make it past that first couple, like the first 6 episodes or 5 episodes. And then,
yeah, because those first episodes were based off of the English version.
Yeah, and then, well, the first episode was, and then like episode 2 was Diversity Day. That was the American one, but they were like they had like 5 episodes to prove themselves, and the ratings weren't quite there. But then even the second season, they were only given like a handful of episodes in the second season, and then at one point they were just like, yeah, keep going. Like, Meredith and Oscar, they still were working jobs as a waiter in the second season in real life.
Yeah, that's something.
Like, they both were like talking to each other apparently according to this book. They were like, should we quit our job? Should we keep them? And like Meredith said when she quit, her boss at the restaurant told her, "You'll be back."
Damn.
And
so she got in her van, took a drink, and went to Dunder Mifflin.
And John Krasinski apparently was like one of the people that worked on The Office, like in the executive roles. He worked on Scrubs, and John Krasinski was like so sure that this job was gonna end. He's like, "Is there any way you can get me on Scrubs?" So it's pretty crazy.
It is. It's also really disappointing how NBC handled Steve Carell because, you know, you read the stories and Steve Carell didn't want to leave The Office.
Can you imagine how good
it was just kind of a botch on their part.
Can you imagine how good those last couple of seasons would have been if Steve Carell would have stayed?
Yeah. You know, you watch the post-Michael Office, and it is not the same.
No. I mean, there's some funny things, but it just went downhill so fast. And that show, for being as great as it was, man, the last season or 2, you're just like, can you just put this show out of its misery?
Yeah, exactly. Though I did think the finale was good.
The finale was good. Yeah. Especially with Creed.
Yeah. Let's do it. Gets carried away by cops.
The best part is Creed Bratton was played by somebody named Creed Bratton.
Yeah. Who was the guitarist for the Grassroots.
Yes. And I like all of
I watched the music video for Live for Today on YouTube, and it's like, oh, there's Creed.
I like the Creed. Like, have you ever seen, like, there's like a YouTube video, it's like all of the crazy Creed things, and it was like,
yes,
it's like he insinuated that he killed somebody and took their name.
Hey man, and I live by the quarry. Let's go there sometime and throw things down there.
I like the Secret Santa gift that he got for Jim. And Jim's like, yeah, it's like he woke up and realized there's no Secret Santa gift, and then just took whatever he had sitting around his desk, and then was like, here you go. Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Classic.
The Office. It's hilarious. Like, I'll be like, oh man, there's so many shows I want to watch that are new shows. I'm just gonna watch The Office again.
Yeah. Oh, I do that all the time. I can watch it over and over and over. And I was just recently watching a very good YouTube video breaking down season 1, Michael versus Michael the rest of the way, and you realize how unbelievably different they were.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they were talking about it in this book, how it basically in even the pilot episode, he was an asshole. Like,
yeah.
And they sort of had to flush out the character. But
that wouldn't have lasted, because that Michael Scott character would not have lasted.
No, that show would have got canceled.
Yeah.
But, Dwight was pretty much the final character. I mean, he was who he was from the get-go. Some of the characters were who they were, but then, some of the other characters got flushed out. But Michael, yeah, a completely different character.
Also, if you notice, you watch back, the exterior of the office is a completely different building in season 1.
Well, what's funny is where they shot it, like in the office. What show was it? Alias? I think it was what they used as the offices, like the production offices for Alias.
Yes.
And somebody was like, oh yeah, my office was the conference room. He's like, it's so weird to go on the set and be like, this is the office from The Office, and that was my office for this TV show.
Yeah, and I also read that in season 1 they filmed the interior in the actual office space, and then for the rest they built the sets just like that office. So it was technically filmed in an office building in season 1. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, season 1 was, I haven't gotten any further in the book, but season 1 was absolutely in that office, and the warehouse was attached. It was that was where they did things.
There was also a lot of background characters that just were randomly there that just disappeared.
Yeah, one of my favorite comedians was a secondary character on the show, Patrice O'Neill. He was one of the warehouse guys. But it's such a throwaway line. But one of my favorites is, he's like, "Damn it, Michael!"
Yeah.
That show is so good.
I'll always love it.
The only thing is, I'm reading that how many of these episodes early on were they were 45, 50 minutes that they had to cut down to 21 minutes. And I'm like, and they were like,
wow.
It was so hard. They were like, it was so much good material. I'm like, I wish they would have released these complete, these extended versions. I'm like, it would be like watching with new stuff. Like, that would be amazing. There were so many good jokes were left on the cutting room floor. And I'm like, damn it, why can't I see these? Why aren't these archived?
Oh, I wish you could see more of it.
I know. So I'm surprised if those things exist.
Also, in the pilot,
if those exist, NBC's somehow going to try to financially gain from them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
They'll be like, you have to sign up for the Peacock network.
It is now owned by Tom Ricketts. Yeah.
Buy some tchotchkes.
Buy some tchotchkes and pumpkins at Gallagher Wayne.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say before?
If you watch the pilot, there is a brief moment where they show an exterior shot, and it is this completely random ass building. It's not like the exterior set of season 1. It's not the exterior we know from the rest the show. It is this really random office building that looks nothing like either.
Huh. What sounds like tonight?
Look it up.
Sounds like tonight I'm gonna have to start watching it again, because I ended up, when I knew it was gonna leave Netflix, I was like, I bought it on iTunes because it was on sale for like $30. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna buy it because I'm not gonna sign up for the Peacock network just for The Office, so I'll just buy it for $30 and done.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Hopefully by the time we talk next week, we have big Bears announcements, but I don't think we will. I think we'll be talking about the delicious pizza I ate.
We'll settle that when we settle that.
But thank you guys so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn app, Google Play, Spotify. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at we don't do that. At Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. And thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.